Xin chào mừng đến với PsyWicV, tôi tên là Huy. Vào những tháng đầu năm 2021, tôi và tiến sĩ Hoa có cơ hội được làm một workshop tại hội nghị của các nhà thờ Việt Nam tại Mỹ. Sau đây là một trích đoạn của workshop đó với chủ đề là thách thức những suy nghĩ tiêu cực. Xin lưu ý, workshop này được làm bằng tiếng Anh nên chúng tôi sẽ có phụ đề tiếng Việt bên dưới cho quý vị. Hy vọng những thông tin này sẽ giúp quý vị thách thức những suy nghĩ tiêu cực và có một cuộc sống tinh thần hiệu quả và khỏe mạnh hơn. Let's go.
I'm putting this video together in lieu of the fact that I can't be with you live right now. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this part of the lecture, and Hui for letting me participate in this process with him. And so a lot of times what happens is when we feel a certain thing, our feeling about it accompanies with a certain thought that we have about ourselves. And then it's accompanied by a certain change in behavior that naturally happens in that process. And so the hope is that in order to correct how you feel, you are correcting what you tell yourself, because how you feel sometimes is hard to change. So it's hard for me to say to somebody, look, I know you're sad, but try to feel happy. That's a really hard, tall order for someone who's feeling sad. However, but if you can help them identify the thoughts they're having in their mind and help them correct that, that might actually help over time improve the feeling and improve their courage to be able to proceed to do an activity that maybe they experience failure initially. So the things we're going to talk about today is called ways to challenge negative thoughts. Negative thoughts simply means there are thoughts that come to mind that may or may not be accurate, that give you or make you go to a point where it becomes illogical. So you go, maybe the example I have here is maybe you got a C on your exam, and it's the first time you've ever gotten a C on your test. So you may tell yourself, oh, I am not a good student, right? Even though all the years past, you've been a good student and you have really good you have the ability to change the result of this one exam. So you think in your mind, well, this means, if I don't bring this up, I'm going to lose my scholarship. And then, well, if I lose my scholarship, then it means I'm going to have to take out more loans. And now my future is ruined, or the world is over, or there's no way out of this, right? So that's a pattern of negative thought. And you can see that in general, what I say about negative thoughts is when you have a negative thought, you tend to, at the end of all those thoughts combined, you tend to feel hindered. Like it doesn't motivate you towards a constructive behavior. It just kind of puts you down and lets you stay stagnant in that one place. Whereas a constructive thought prompts you to and motivates you to behave and to change and to thrive in a different way. So it prompts problem solving in order to get you to your desired goal. Whereas negative thoughts tend to put you down and takes you away from the goal you want to accomplish. Right. So there are lots of different types of negative thoughts. I'm going to cover a few so you have the general idea of what they are. And then at the end, I'm going to provide a brief overview of all of the different questions that you can ask yourself when and if you notice these thoughts come to mind, so that you can talk yourself into a better pattern of thinking in order to promote activities that are constructive for you and heal and help your wound heal faster. All right. So overgeneralization is when you constantly see a negative pattern in every event, and even though it's not necessarily that way. So you overgeneralize the failing exam or the C grade to your ability to be able to get good grade, or to your ability as a student. And so after you interview for a job, as an example here, you don't get it, and you think, well, I'm never going to get a job. Or my field of study is not valued, or no one values my skills. Well, the challenge here might be, just as an example, well, what else might be contributing to the situation? You may ask yourself. And you see that when you ask yourself that question, the things that might come up is, well, the company probably received a lot of very competitive candidates, and I am one of many qualified individuals for this position. And therefore, I'm taking that instead of internalizing that responsibility and internalizing how I see myself, I'm actually attributing some of the factors to external variables that may actually also be true. All right, so all or nothing. Another way of saying this is black and white. There's no gray in between. You see things as absolute. So a friend maybe compliments you on something and you say, oh, they're just saying that because they're being nice. I'm not good at anything. Or, or that they're, I never quite have the knack to do anything. I'm not good, right? And so it's either, the situation is either black or white. There's no intermediate. They're either going to be my friend or they're not my friend. They can't be an associate of sorts. And so one of the things that you can do to challenge yourself when you have those extreme thoughts is, another example might be, I asked her and she said, no, she doesn't want to date me, so she must hate me. And so one way to challenge that is, can I be sure that these thoughts are true? And how, is there another way to explain this? How true is it, right? The next type of negative thought that tends to happen is blaming or denying. So you blame others for your problem or mistakes, or you blame yourself when it isn't entirely your fault. So an example might be, well, it's all my fault they're upset. Well, if somebody is upset, it is within their right and limit to be upset about a situation. So you might want to ask yourself the question, well, is their feeling really my responsibility? Can I change how they feel? And am I capable of that task? If I it's hard enough for us to change our feelings. And so to imagine trying to change somebody else's feeling and taking responsibility for how they feel, it's a pretty daunting task. And so is it really my fault that they're upset? How am I actually responsible? And so that helps you hone in on what is it that I have done that might have led to this, and was there another way to do this that could have yielded a different result? And at the end of the day, most of the time, people figure out that, well, I did the best I can given the situation, and if they're upset, it is well within their right to be upset about that. But I can't take responsibility for everything. And so sometimes in every situation, there's fault everywhere, and sometimes there isn't fault within the person. It's just the situation, the scenario that really puts you in that framework. And so it's important to recognize all of those variables. So this is an overview of all of the different types of questions that will help you overcome some of those negative thoughts that when you think of them or when you have these thoughts, you just kind of want to sit and slouch and do nothing, and it hinders your ability to continue your work and your progress. And so you may, where applicable, ask yourself these questions in order to challenge those thoughts a little bit so that you can work up the reasoning that is rational and wise to continue to evaluate your thoughts and your emotions. So some of the questions are, how do I know that this is an accurate thought? So is this fact or is this emotional, right? And so what evidence do I have to support this thought or belief that is in my environment in the real world? So for instance, I'm a bad student because I have a C on an exam. Well, what evidence do I have to support this belief or this thought? And maybe some of the evidence is, well, I failed another test before this semester, and is it true? Is it that I'm a bad student? Well, maybe not, because I'm in college or I'm in nursing school or wherever I am, and so if I was a bad student, I wouldn't be there. So you see how that allows me to balance both the negative and the positive, and allows me to put a more realistic perspective on that thought. How can I test my assumption to find out whether or not these things are accurate? So for somebody with anxiety, they might think, well, if I go to that party, people are going to laugh at me. And so one way to think about it is, well, could I put this to a test to where I could evaluate the outcome or whatever happens as data, right? So can I experiment with this? So how do you set up an experiment to find out whether or not this is accurate? Well, you may approach some people and say, hey, do I somehow behave in a funny way, or do I embarrass myself when I hang out with you guys, and in what way? Or the best ultimate test is to go to a party and see if people actually do laugh at you, just so you can get the data and overcome that belief. Oftentimes what happens is when people feel that way, they stay home, they stay put, they don't do anything, they don't challenge it, they don't have data ever to support the opinion otherwise. So collect the data you need to support, to see if your thoughts are actually accurate. So do I have a friend who I can check these thoughts with? So similar to what I just mentioned, are there ways that I can think about the situation or myself? Are there different ways that I can, or different perspectives, different thoughts that I can use to balance these out, to challenge these thoughts? Am I blaming myself unnecessarily? Is this really about me or about the situation or about other people? Is it within my boundary, within my control to change it? What else might be contributing to the situation? Is this within my control? Is there some intermediate version of this? Is it really all or nothing? Or can I do 50% or 20% now and 30% later? Am I assuming the worst and a worst case scenario? And if it was not the worst case scenario, what would that look like? So explore that gray area a little bit. And are there exceptions? And oftentimes, or are there options, right? And so oftentimes what happens is when you ask yourself that question, there are always going to be some other option, some other exception to the rule, because nothing is really absolute. And so you want to be able to think through those things. So what I'm hoping is, out of being able to identify some of these negative thoughts and out of asking these challenging questions, that you found some sort of a rhythm for yourself and find questions along the way that would help you challenge some of those frequent thoughts that come to mind that bother you, that you have a hard time getting rid of, and start using it. It's sort of like, well, you can't always, you want to be careful when you use a knife. You don't want to have a cut on your finger, but if you do have a cut on your finger, it's going to heal. You just need to know how to treat that wound. And so I hope that this process, along with what Anhui is going to share, will give you enough information to be able to work through some of these by yourself. And if not, be comfortable with approaching somebody about your thoughts and your situation, because someone will understand and can give you that friend's perspective that you're looking for. And maybe in a moment where you're having these feelings, it's so hard to conjure that up, but having that second or third or fourth opinion or perspective could really lift you up in a moment when you need. All right, so I hope you enjoy the rest of your seminar with Anhui, and good luck to you all, and God bless.